Ready to go? Okay guys, so we're going to be going over Evolve Part 1, which is the basics of nutrition. So a few of you guys have done it before, and then a few of you guys are coming back to do it again. Also then there's going to be Evolve Part 2. So basically the whole premise of this one is all about adherence and results. So we'll basically progress through a 3-part program. This is obviously Part 1. Part 2 depends on how you do in Part 1. So I don't let anybody do Part 2 if they didn't participate properly in Part 1. So what participation looks like is full adherence the full way through the whole program. If we can't get through the full way through the whole program, we don't move on to Part 2, just because Part 2 adds more layers to it and it requires a bit more commitment onto that. So that's why we really invest in the adherence on this part. So we're going to go over some basics today. At the end, I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask any questions. But at any point, if you do have a question, just try to think of it in your head, keep it to the end, and we'll go from there. Cool? So first thing, and the most important thing, is caloric balance. When it comes to caloric balance, this will completely dictate your results. This is very factual. Unfortunately, we have to take away the emotion from it. If any of these three things happen to you, this is exactly where your calories were for that given day. So a lot of people are going to be looking at a deficit, which will basically cause weight loss. So to make this happen, our calories in have to be less than our calories out. At any point, if, for example, our weight was to stay the same, we would have maintenance, which basically means your calories in match your calories out. And then if we have a weight increase, that's a surplus, if calories in is higher than your calories out. So when we're taking weight or looking through the process as we go through, this is going to be your whole dictation. So you'll hear a lot of people ask a lot of different reasons as to why they didn't lose weight, or they'll try to think of other reasons and excuses. Essentially, it will always come down to this. If this is the way your weight has come through, this is exactly what has happened. Now, deficit is obviously great because that's where people are going to look for fat loss, but these other two guys are very important. So a maintenance period is also recommended after you do a period of fat loss, because a lot of people will lose weight and they'll put the weight straight back on. So to calculate a maintenance and actually work on that and continue to track after is very important. And then a surplus is for people who would be looking to build an extra bit of muscle, for example. So if that's one of your goals as well, it's perfectly cool. Next, we're going to move on to how to track. So them calorie numbers I was talking about, I'll provide you guys with the number, but what's very important is that we track it. So adherence is key. If it's not tracked, it's guessed, and guessing doesn't get you results, essentially. You may get lucky every week or so, but if we want to get long-term sustainable results, you have to track your calories. So on this, this is the key part of the whole program. Without this adherence, I won't be able to help you. Like, I can give you all of the tools, I can give you everything that you need, but without adherence, we won't be able to get any results or see any results from that. So how we're going to do that is use an app called MyFitnessPal. So step 1, get the app. Step 2, you're going to input the calorie number that I calculate for you. So I'll get your height, weight, age. I'll use that to calculate your calories to suit your goal. So that'll be either weight loss, maintenance, or weight gain, whatever you want to do. So once we put this in on the app, we then have step 3, how we track. So anything with a barcode, track through the app, pretty simple. On the camera takes a picture. Things that don't have a barcode, step 3.5 is going to be search. So there's a search bar. So what that looks like is bananas, apples, that type of thing. Now, you obviously have different sizes. Rough estimates is going to be okay on that. Now, if we notice that you're having a lot of that type of food and your results aren't going your way, then we can look at revisiting it. But I can't stress enough how important these steps are, and that this is done correctly, because without this, you can forget about everything else that we're going to go through. It has to be done, and it's just the way that fat loss will occur on that is with the adherence. Another note is when you track things, just getting familiar with the app. Let's say, for example, if I take a picture of something, it might give me the recommended serving size. So that could be 25 grams, for example. If you're having 50, 60 grams, it's very important that you edit that to suit you, otherwise your calories are going to be way off. Cool? So that's kind of the basics of what it will look like to get the process going. But next we have to look at what your weight loss is going to be looking like, or what progress really looks like. So expectation is linear progress, daily decrease, and perfect diet adherence. That won't happen. Weight, it fluctuates quite a lot. Now, as long as you're doing the right steps and the right things, you will get your results. Now, when I was talking about earlier about them balances, that's more of a long-term process. If you're looking at every single week, sometimes that can vary. So an example of this would be if on a Sunday night you decide to have a late dinner and you drank a big glass of water, and the next morning you woke up, didn't go to the toilet, and you weighed yourself, you'll still be heavier than what you actually are, because you've got more fluid retention, and also you ate late at night. So if you go to the bathroom, you'll probably be a kilo or so lighter. So that can make a big difference on it. So that's why we take our weight once a week, and we look at it over a long-term process rather than in one go. So you can see here, expectation that it'll be exactly here, but in reality, what's going to happen is you'll go down, maybe plateau, come back down again. So that's perfectly fine, but just making sure you understand that as the process goes way throughout. And also another key point is on them calories. If we don't have adherence, we will not be changing the number. So the number only changes if we have consistent adherence and we just see a plateau in the numbers of what we're looking for, but that's very rare. Next, we're going to go to macronutrients. So We've obviously talked about calories and what that means for your guys' results, but on that then there's a bit more to it. So what we're going to be looking at is your macronutrients. So that's basically the bulk of your diet. There's 3 of them: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So they're going to be key to what percentage split that we work on. So I'll give you guys a percentage number, so how much of your diet that'll basically can consist of. So for example, if we're looking at carbohydrates, that's going to be your biggest nutrient. That's going to be the one you are the most of. So we're going to be looking at a 45% general number there, because basically carbohydrates is your fuel source. So if we have carbs, we're feeling full and we're eating the different types of carbs to match what we need to be doing across the 6 weeks, that'll help you guys get a lot more results. So just while we're on the topic of carbs, we're going to keep it really basic and go through the 2 different types. You've got simple and complex. So with the simple, that basically means your body can easily break it down. It supplies a quick hit of energy and over a short time period. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. That can be used quite well for your training, which we'll discuss throughout the weeks as pre and post workout training. But for now, what you have to understand is if we're having a diet full of only simplex or dominantly full of simple carbs, you're going to have problems with your energy sustainability. So for example, if you had a bowl of Rice Krispies for breakfast, and then you had a normal simple, you had a quick bar for a granola bar for lunch, and then at dinner you had a load of simple carbs again, you're going to have a part where you're going to have spikes of energy and you're going to feel quite hungry after. So then if you have a look at the complex side, it's harder for your body to break it down, supplying a slowly energy over a longer period of time. So with this, that's something that's going to be sustainable over a longer period. So for example, oats in the morning will basically take a while for your body to break down. It's basically a double molecule. That's the only difference between the 2. There's 1 molecule here, 2 molecules here, and it takes longer for your body to break it down. So when your body is breaking it down, it's going to supply energy more slowly, and that's how it's going to keep you more full throughout the day. Now, one of them isn't bad, one of them isn't good, just have different uses and different digestion rates, the only difference between the 2. So as we go throughout the 6 weeks, I'll be giving you advice on where one fits in and where one wouldn't be a great choice. An example of that could be, you could have a complex carb for lunch, and then if you're coming straight from work to here, you could have a simple carb on your way here, because your body will get another top up of energy. So you're still getting your sustainable complex, and then we have a simple carb, which could be a piece of fruit, just before you come into the gym, spikes your energy up, gives you an extra hit just before you start your workout, and that's an example of where it can be very handy. Cool? So next, we have protein. So protein is a molecule made up of amino acids. So it's most known for building muscle and repairing body tissue, which is its main role, but we do have other functions. We don't need to know all of these functions, but as long as you're aware that there's not just muscle building and it's got a little bit more to do in the body. So the reason why I have this up here is, so for example, you can see enzymes, so biochemical reactions, digestion, blood clotting, protection of hair and skin, and the maintenance of pH levels, basically the acidity of your blood as you go throughout the day. So the reason I put them up there is because your body is always going to do this first before it does this. So you're coming to the gym to build muscle, to get stronger, to make yourself look a little bit better as well. If you don't have enough protein, your body is going to prioritize whatever little amount it gets with this. So it'll avoid all of this. So it's going to slow down your progress in the gym, and we're going to be most likely in a calorie deficit. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body is really good at prioritizing what's more necessary, like basically what makes it easier for itself. So that's far more important to this. So that's why it's very important that we make the effort to match our macronutrients, because if we don't, your body's not going to do this, and that's going to massively impact your progress in here. But also you want to make sure you're doing both, because your progress in here is going to increase your output, and that's going to be a huge part of what makes up your calorie balance as well. So it's just very important to make sure that we look at protein as not just a muscle builder, that it has other roles in the body, and that's very important to bring it up to our percentage hit. Then lastly, we have fats. So they provide energy, not as efficiently as carbs, but they also have got roles in supporting cell growth and help absorb vitamins, so A, D, E, and K. There's 4 different types of fats. So fats always have a bad name because they are higher in calories. So carbohydrates and protein are 4 calories per gram, fat is 9 calories per gram. So obviously you can have a higher volume of food with carbs and protein, but that doesn't mean they're not important. So this is why I put up here, just so you guys have an idea of the 4 different types. So how you can tell them apart: saturated fats are solid at room temperature, so it's going to be your meat and dairy. You've got unsaturated fats, liquid at room temperature, so it's going to be oils. Trans fats, so artificially produced, and then you've got omega-3 fatty acids. So these are very important. So this is where you're going to get in fish and stuff like that. Your body doesn't naturally produce these. So if we don't take them in, your body won't provide it. And this is important to your micronutrients. It's something we're not going to touch on too heavily within the 6 weeks. That'll be more in part 2, but it's important to be aware of it, that these 4 different types all have different functions, and they all have basically different qualities to your body. So again, I'll be giving you tips and tricks of how you can manipulate them to get the most out of it. But fats being at the higher end of the calories, if you're in a deficit, it's important to keep that percentage down as well. So that'll be our lowest of the 3. Will most likely be between 20 and 25% in your macro space of that. But it is important to understand that just because the word fat is in them, it doesn't make you fat. They are just there to act as another macronutrient, and they are very important. Then we're going to go into some common myths. So These are things that people will ask all the time, and I'm going to exactly what they are and why people believe they are so, and then just so you can kind of go into this with a clean slate and not worry about different things. So again, like I was saying at the beginning, a lot of you are going to be going for fat loss. So there's a thing called spot reduction, which basically what that is when people say, I want to lose fat around my stomach, or I want to lose fat around my arms. It's not possible. It's like if you had, the easiest way to think about it is if you had a bath full of water, it'd be like me going in, I want to take water from that corner of the bath. It just wouldn't work like that. If I took a cup of water out of that bath, it's going to have just an equal amount. It's just going to drop out of that, yeah? So you're... Yeah, straight out of it. So it's very important to understand that your body will lose fat from the area that is most dangerous first. So for example, you'll see somebody, if they have more fat around their stomach, that's where your vital organs are. So your body's going to lose fat from there first. So you'll see people saying, I want to tone up my arms, I want to get more lean arms. It will lose fat from the areas that are more dangerous first, because there's not much danger of having fat in the arms, for example. That's just one of the choices of it. So this is a complete myth, and it isn't true. And it's not something that's going to happen. So no matter how many tricep stuff you do or how much ab work you do, if your diet is incorrect, you're not going to see any results in terms of fat loss in them areas. Next, we have carbs are bad. So like we discussed earlier, we simple and complex. So where the badness comes in is people think that they make you gain weight and that they will make you gain fat. Completely untrue. All they are is just another macronutrient that provide a different role in the body. So what carbs we'll look at, like for example, if a simple carb has an energy spike and reduce, doesn't mean it's bad. Like we're saying, it has a function. It's just about using it correctly. The second part of that is carbs basically will hold water, and when people have water retention, they feel like they're gaining weight. It's not fat. Gaining weight from water retention is a completely different thing. And like I was saying, you could go to the bathroom the next morning and your weight could come back down. So water retention isn't bad weight. You're looking at losing fat more so than looking at losing weight as a whole. Like obviously both go hand in hand. Another one is fats are bad. So like we discussed earlier, there's different types of fats, different roles in the body, and they can have a massive impact on your overall health if you can get them correct. The reason they get the bad name is because, like I was saying earlier, the 9 calories per gram. So if you have 9 calories per gram versus 4 calories per gram, people automatically assume, oh, they're more dense in calories, meaning I'm going to avoid them. But you just manage your portion size and control, and you'll do really well on that. So again, not bad, just using them correctly is the actual issue there. So genetics are your destiny. So that's another one that a lot of people will try to blame when they've tried a few diets or they've tried things in the past that hasn't worked for them. Nothing is going to prevent you from doing well in this program if you actually adhere to it and do it correctly. Genetics are not an excuse. It's not something that happens. It's all about your energy balance. So it's not anybody's destiny to not be able to progress in a certain method. It's their ability to adhere to it is what's going to stop them. So again, another myth. Extreme diets are required. So that one kind of answers itself after we've just talked through. The reason why extreme diets work is because they create a calorie deficit, which is something that we're going to do anyway. But the way we're going to do it is sustainable, so it's going to get you results over a longer period of time. If you do an extreme diet, yes, you will lose weight, but it teaches you nothing. And what ends up happening is you go back to old habits and you haven't gone through a process, and just weight comes back on and just repeats the cycle over and over again. What we're going to do is a deficit, and that's going to teach you better habits, so that when you do lose the weight, you understand what you were eating and how you were eating may have been incorrect. So that way, when you do go back to maintenance, that you know how to manage your calories and what the nutrition behind them is. And then lastly is eating after 6 p.m. leads to weight gain. So the example that I gave earlier of people eating late at night and then weighing themselves the next morning, that's just water weight and fluid retention, and like that, you probably just haven't gone to the toilet. So that's where the weight gain comes from. It doesn't matter what time of the day you eat at. The only issue with eating it late at night is your quality of sleep can be affected because your body's digesting food just before you go to sleep. So ideally, you try to stop eating before you go to bed. But in terms of weight gain, it has absolutely no place in it. Cool. So we just go over them just to make sure people are on the same page. So next, we're going to have a look at recommendations and tips. So throughout this whole process, we're obviously going to try and make better selections in the food that we eat, but there is some tips to keep you in the loop, because you have to be realistic. You're not going to go from eating what you're currently eating to eating the absolute perfect diet. I don't do that. Nobody on the planet does that consistently year round, unless they're in some sort of athlete or something like that